Sabbatical sits in an industry that is at the intersection of co-working and travel. And what this really means is that we take the remote work industry that's been hugely growing over the last decade or so, and we productize that to make it available to large corporations with very little internal effort required. And so why does this matter to companies? Well, it matters because their employees care about this. If you look at millennials from a study from Deloitte, and you see why they'll stay with a company over 5 years, you see that those three biggest things are a sense of purpose shared with the company, to get a variety of different experiences during their work time, and to receive personal recognition beyond compensation. So maybe a few years ago this wouldn't have mattered so much, but the US workforce today is 53.5 million millennials, and it's going to be almost 120 million by 2025, which is a huge majority of everyone in the workforce. So work's changed a lot over the past few years, and we think it's going to continue changing even faster. Compared to what happened maybe in the 1960s or 1970s with what some people's schedule looks like probably at a lot of companies here today, it's just very different, and we think that Sabbatical can help usher in that big change. So we've had hundreds, probably thousands of conversations with companies at this point over the last year or so, and the three big ways that companies are actually going to be using Sabbatical in action, and companies have committed to using it with us this way before, are through employee rewards programs, so hiring and retaining the best employees, through team building retreats, product meetings, basically using us as a remote office just for outsourced work, and for executive vacations like actual sabbaticals. So if you think there's very little redundancy, a company doesn't have two CMOs, if somebody needs to get away for 2 weeks, work for a couple hours in the morning, have access to dedicated workspace, take conference calls, go out surfing in the afternoon. There's also this huge market of solopreneurs, freelancers, consultants that was basically invisible in the US market 10 years ago. That's as much as 21% of all employees today, and going to be 40% of the US economy by 2020. So now those are people with no redundancy. They can't take 2 weeks off of work. They have no way to do that. So we're a differentiated asset in the class that we think is going to be really, really compelling to those people. So what is the Sabbatical product? The Sabbatical product is basically taking all of these things that are really complex and hard to do for companies individually, and we package those and turn it into something that we can do at scale much more easily. So we're basically this all-in-one, efficient, reliable platform where companies buy in, and then they have access to remote work with no internal resource allocation. So here's what we've done to date. We did our public launch less than 4 months ago. We signed partnerships with 2 national co-working brands representing about 30 to 40 co-working spaces that we think are going to be huge channel partners for our platform. Since that time, we've signed on 12 companies that have committed to do at least 2 weeks with us for our launch this fall. And we've raised about $450,000 in funding that we think is plenty for us to open our first market this summer and 2 more markets over the next 18 months. Additionally, with those 12 companies that have signed up, that's about halfway of what we need to fill out our entire launch for 3 months this fall. So we're about 50% capacity, and we've done very light PR, and we haven't even shown pictures of our asset to anyone. We've already been able to fill half of it up. So Sabbatical is a big vision, and we realize that it's probably a little bit difficult to understand. Our team, we think, has the right set of skills to do this. I ran the data science team at Belly and ran the marketing analytics team at Red Hat, and this is the second startup I founded. One of my co-founders worked in private equity, sourcing international real estate deals in New York, and the others run hospitality assets all over the world. We think we're the right team at the right time with the right vision to attack this huge, potentially disruptive problem. Thank you.
Great job, great job. So I just want to make sure I understand. You're going to go into companies and pitch them on this concept of a product where they can reward their employees by going on sabbatical, and you're going to handle all the logistics and everything involved in it.
Exactly. Okay. So if they want to open remote offices, we're the facilitator for doing that with them, not having to manage these sort of non-core competencies in-house.
So is the concept to be able to open a remote office or enable an employee to take a month off and go to Puerto Rico?
So we think those two concepts are sort of merging moving forward. It's more for them to get out of the office and have a place to go, but we think it can also function as a remote office space for companies.
Cool idea. Could you share a little bit on how the unit economics work? Like where do you make money? What kind of cut do you take? How much do they pay you, the actual businesses?
Definitely, and we actually have another slide that we figured would come up as part of this relevant QA. So we have two ways that we enter markets. One is what we'll call the capital light method, where we're sort of more of a high-touch, business-focused Airbnb that allows us to open a lot of markets using underutilized assets. You see, the advent of VRBO, Airbnb, and these shared economy companies has opened this market where things that were boutique hotels before are really struggling to fill rooms, and we can take those underutilized assets, add those to our platform, and be a much more efficient booking platform than the OTAs that exist in the market today.
I'm wondering, is there a risk when you have, let's say, larger co-working networks as they grow, that people just kind of look at you as a middleman and then just try to go to those networks? And of course, they would not be able to provide some of the other services that you offer, but I'm just wondering specifically if there's a danger and how you would counteract against that.
Yeah, I mean, navigating in these international markets, as we've learned in the last 6 months or so, is pretty difficult if you don't have experience there. You know, there are co-working spaces in some of these, and other ones we're going to have to furnish the co-working spaces, but we're sort of building this entire experiential platform. There's educational components, there's the living components, consistent Wi-Fi, conference rooms, transportation, work permits. There's a lot of things that are easiest for us to handle for 1,000 companies, but if one company's doing it themselves, it's almost impossible to handle.
So would you say it's accurate that you've got competitors, micro competitors, like in one part of your offering and then also in the other, but not necessarily on both sides?
Yeah, so this industry, if you think about, there's been people that travel all over the world and do remote work right now, but it's sort of a cottage industry of digital nomads or full-time remote workers. We're sort of taking that lifestyle, and they're comfortable with a lot of uncertainty. Oh, my conference call got canceled. It's okay, I'll reschedule for next week. We're taking all the uncertainty out of that lifestyle, but bringing all the benefits, and that's a space that's been growing demonstrably over the last 5 years or so.
Seems like it's going to take a lot of overhead to get to your final state of being able to offer everything that you're thinking of, right? I mean, that's capital intensive, people intensive, even for one company. So are you going to start, we say, offering half of that or a quarter of it?
We're already offering it, so we're open and have customers on the ground in our first site in San Juan, Puerto Rico today, and it's less capital intensive than you think. It's more just understanding the logistics of how to enter these markets and being able to make those recommendations and productize it for companies.
All right, thank you so much. Sabbatical.